I had vowed never to cross the Mason-Dixon line going south again in my life.
And yet here he sits, smack dab in the heart of Dixie, telling his story. You see, he had some bad experiences in the South as a young man. He grew up in the mostly desegregated North, in and around Detroit, Michigan. In 1943, he was drafted into the Army. He and a handful of black recruits were sent to Georgia to be trained as medics. He was 21. He'd heard about the racial tensions in the South. Now he would experience it firsthand.
We had various problems because the Army was segregated then, for sure.
He was assigned to the 366th Infantry Regiment, attached to the 92nd Division, one of a few segregated all-black units, called the Buffalo Soldiers. They were first established in the Civil War and remained active until the Army was desegregated in 1948. He was in Europe on D-Day, driving trucks and guarding weapons depots, while 4,000 mostly white soldiers died on the beaches of Normandy.
2 months after that, they decided, well, we can put some black people in and let them get shot at too.
His all-black regiment ended up on the front lines in northern Italy, holding the small town of Somma Colonia. The day after Christmas, German and Austrian soldiers carried out a surprise attack. Smith and several others took cover in a small house.
And I went to the far wall and bent down, and a 120-millimeter mortar shell burst through the window and peppered me.
With very few supplies and little ammunition, the 92nd knew they couldn't stop the German soldiers, but they were determined to slow them down. One of the American soldiers, a man named Lieutenant John Fox, was surrounded by the enemy, but he ordered an artillery strike on his position, killing himself and, by some accounts, about 100 of the enemy soldiers. By the time the fighting was all done, most of the black soldiers holding that small town were dead. Smith was badly wounded, and in what he thought were his final hours, he turned to God.
The rumor was out that Hitler had issued a standing order, kill all black prisoners. So I started trying to pray, and something kept saying, you're too late. You should have done this last week. You're gone now.
But God had other plans for Smith. He and several others were taken prisoner, eventually ending up at a POW camp in southern Germany. Along the way, he remembers seeing Dachau concentration camp.
You could see all these ditches with arms and legs and heads sticking all up.
He fought the cold, hunger, and bed bugs for 4 months. And then one morning in late April of 1945, he heard a familiar sound. American tanks approaching fast.
And then we saw the swastika come down off the headquarters post and the stars and stripes go up. And that's when I cried, and I saw other men crying.
He still proudly flies the flag. He has a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star, symbols of his service and sacrifice. Oh, and remember the vow he made to never cross the Mason-Dixon line again? Well, he broke that on a road trip to Huntsville after the war. He met and eventually married Dorothy, who had graduated from Oakwood University. He earned 5 degrees, including a Ph.D., and he fought segregation and prejudice right here in North Alabama.
I became the 4th black registered voter in Madison County.
These days, he shares his stories to keep the memory of the brave men of the 92nd Infantry alive and to bear witness to what he sees as a larger fight that is far from over.
I have seen a lot of changes, and then I've seen folk who just could not change.